So it's
Yeah,
really, it's
definitely.
the, 3 things for high school students to remember,
Mhm.
right? One is take care of your brain chemistry. 2 is learn skills. 3 is be curious.
Exactly.
If taking care of your brain chemistry is so undervalued, and largely it's because people just don't understand, right? No one has sat down with them. It's like 100 years ago. People weren't talking about brushing your teeth being a smart move, right? Nobody today is talking about the value of maintaining your brain chemistry and how simple and easy it is to do, right? So that's the baseline. And the next one is learn a bunch of skills, start messy, completely fine. Practicing skills, even if you suck at it, is more important than just ignoring it. Like you can't, there's nothing you're going to get good at magically if you don't practice. It just doesn't work that way.
Exactly. Yeah. You can't just like wake up tomorrow and like, be good at these skills. Like
Exactly. Yeah.
you can't just say, hey, yo, I learned, I like, read this in a book or something like that, or I saw it on YouTube. Like it doesn't work that way.
Right.
But
Right.
like, obviously practice and stuff. And like, every single day, make sure you're like being mindful about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like, one of the most important things, like I think just for anything is practice, but this specifically, because like literally like retraining your brain to like act in a certain way. Right. So.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And you're continually adding into those skills, right? And there's always going to be skills or versions of skills that you've never heard of before, which is why curiosity is so valuable, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think I got lucky in high school because, well, even before that, my mom's a journalist, and so she was really big on research. And so in high school, I was writing term papers I had to write a 10-page term paper for science every quarter of every
Wait,
year I
10
was in
whole
high
pages?
school. What's that?
10 whole pages?
10 whole pages, yeah.
Oh God,
Old
that's
school.
Wow.
10 pages on a manual typewriter, no less. Yeah, it was
oh, Lord.
crazy. Yeah.
Manual typewriter, bro.
This was serious effort, right? So now when my kids complain they got to write 3 pages, I'm like, yeah, not such a big deal.
No, yeah, that's not bad. That's not bad at all.
Yeah. But I learned the value of that because what I learned was the deal with those papers was I could write about any topic related to science that I was curious about. And so I did, right? I would go to the library and I'd be like, what do I want to learn about today, right? Vitamin E. I'm curious about vitamin E, right? I'm going to write 10 pages on vitamin E because I was really curious about it, right? Going down those rabbit holes is really, really, really valuable as an adult because now when I'm like, I need to go learn more about journaling databases. How do journaling databases work? What's the benefit? What's the downside? What are some good examples? I can go research and find out about journaling databases, which by the way is the underlying technology for cryptocurrency.
Oh, okay.
And they've been around for a really long time.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So for me, having had this practice of diving deep in my curiosity makes it easy now. And every time I've ever when I was racing cars, I deep dive on, why, whatever, why this particular suspension setup and not that suspension setup, right?
Yeah.
So curiosity is just so underrated, and I because Elon Musk is super curious, I figure I'm not going down a bad direction when I advocate for it.
Right.
Yeah. So all these skills that you mentioned, like investing time in yourself and like being curious, what problem specifically like do you think they would solve? Like mental health issues?
Yeah. So one of the things about and this is a little bit philosophical level about mental health rather than a very tactical one. When you talk to people that are struggling with depression and anxiety or imposter syndrome or whatever it happens to be, right? And this is my experience. So I don't know if anybody's ever done broad research on this yet, but every time I go talk to somebody and I start to really drill down, like asking more questions, it's kind of being a bit of an anthropologist. at the bottom level, there's something they want to do, but they don't know how to. They're literally missing a skill or 2 or 3 or 5 skills, right? And that's why they're suffering, right? They don't know how to blah, blah, blah. And it may be 3 or 4 or 5 things that they want to know, but and the reality is those are all very solvable problems if you're curious, right? If you're not curious and you're afraid to go pursue your curiosity, you're kind of hosed, right? So for me, I went deep on my curiosity and said, I need to learn how to do some stuff, right? I got a bunch of books on very specific kinds of things. Like I probably read 15 books on how to present to executives, on how to do great presentations, on how to get them to buy into what I was saying, on how to get them to ask the right kinds of questions to allow a great conversation, and how to really ask them questions in advance to make sure that my presentation was awesome, right? Because I knew that was part of my job and I didn't know how to do that when I walked in the door, right? That was one of those things that I needed to learn how to do. Saying it out loud, it doesn't sound very hard, but before I had the switch in my brain flip over, I hadn't considered that I could go read a bunch of books and then practice presentations and have that be right and have that be a success factor in my career.
Right. Yeah. So all these like real life things that you were able to achieve, and they are clearly important, but kind of transitioning to like the mental health space,
Yeah.
like what would you say like is the most pressing issue in high schools like that we've seen? Like is it depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder?
Exactly. Yeah. Like obviously high school students, like, I mean, they do suffer from like a lot of issues, like, but I mean, we just like want to know, like in specific, like how could like we, market to high school students that these
Yeah.
skills can solve like which problem?
So
Yeah, like I mean, one more thing I just want to add, like wanna we kind of want to direct it at the issue that has the most people have the most issue with, if you get what I mean. Like
yeah.
if there's like a large number of people with depression and it's greater than the amount of people with anxiety, I'd rather focus on depression. So
So one of the things that's interesting is that people rarely, until they get a clinical diagnosis, they rarely know they're suffering from depression or anxiety. They will talk about other kinds of symptoms, but it wasn't literally like, when I was struggling years ago, I didn't know at that point in time that I had depression or anxiety. I knew that my life at work sucked badly, right? And I wasn't very happy at home, but work was really horrible. 2020 hindsight, with what I know now, I can look at that and go, holy cow, yeah, I definitely had some anxiety running back then. Like if I had gone and talked to a therapist, they would have said, yep, you're suffering from anxiety and let's have you come in here every other week or every week and talk about it, right? The symptoms that people talk about are that we've heard, right, have been people saying, I'm worried about my grades. I'm really worried about my grades, which means if I don't have good grades, I won't get into the college that I want, right? And if I don't get the college I want, I won't get the career that I want. And that stack is a set of thinking mistakes, right? And so at one level, you could say the biggest problem for high school students today is thinking mistakes, right? Because they don't have the skill sets yet. Catch it, check it, change it is not a widely taught skill set in high school, right? And so, and it's not even something that most adults are aware of, because even in the mental health community, dialectical behavior therapy, which is the core of what we're teaching, is not widely adopted, because even though people know about it and they know how well it works, they haven't taken the time to go learn about it, right? It's amazing when I talk to people like, yeah, I've heard it works really, really well, but I've never tried it myself, right? So I would say the number one problem is that people have thinking mistakes, but they don't know they have a thinking mistake, right? They just have this idea that, and partly it's their parents are telling them, oh, you have to have great grades because you have to go to a good school to get a good job. The reality is, for the last decade, I've been helping people who've gone to great schools and had great grades, but who can't get a job.
They just like they don't have the skills necessary, even though like they set themselves up to try and get them.
100% bingo. Yeah, they've only got two of the parts of the puzzle, and half the puzzle or more is not academics, right? But people don't have that conversation on campus because there's nobody on campus teaching you the other skill sets that you actually need to be successful at work, right? And so there's this thinking mistake about what the progression looks like to be successful. And so people, everybody gets stressed out. They're like, oh my God, if I don't, and also, like when I was in high school, I was very, very short-sighted. I fully admit it, right? I wasn't thinking about my life 30, 40, 50 years in the future. I was thinking today, tomorrow, this weekend, right? Next weekend. That was as far as my event horizon went. And so, kind of the next thing for high school students is look at the big picture. Like, be curious and look around and see people who are really successful who didn't follow the model that your parents are talking about. Parents are awesome, but like everybody else, they're short-sighted, right? They only know this box, right? Not many parents tell their kids to operate like Elon Musk or like Steve Jobs, right? No parents are telling their kids to operate like Gary Vaynerchuk.
No,
Right?
I don't think many parents like him very much.
Yeah.
And yet, you cannot argue with the man's success, right?
Obviously, no. He took a small wine business turned into a $60 million empire, something like that.
Yeah, it
was
was his dad's wine business, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he
took
chose to like be he didn't live that fast life. Like he got success very late in his life, in like 40s.
Yeah. But he's one of his things is he says, I have a chip on my shoulder to prove to all those people in high school who said I would never amount to anything. Because what they didn't know in high school was he was making thousands of dollars every weekend selling baseball cards at the local mall. He probably made more money than his teachers did.
Most likely, yeah. I mean, like what?
He wasn't showy about it at school, right? That's pretty successful, right? There's a lot of people who reach really high levels of success. Damon John's doing pretty well. Damon's got dyslexia pretty badly, and he had multiple failures with FUBU. He's on Shark Tank now. He's doing pretty well, right? There's a lot of these kinds of examples, but if you don't leverage your curiosity to learn from them, then you don't know, right? You just have no idea, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the big things is really take a bigger picture and be curious.
Exactly.
Cool. Yeah. Wait, real quick. So that mentality is like very like prominent in Saratoga, Los Gatos, like this entire Los Gatos district.
What mentality?
Like of just like having good grades and going to college and just being successful based off those without like accounting for like
they
being
define
able
their
to collaborate. So
basically define their success by going to college and
So one of the hacks for this is figure out how to start doing the work that you would have been doing when you got out of college while you're in high school, right? Like, do you guys know how to write code at all?
Yeah.
A little bit, yeah. I take ABCS in class, and I think so.
Yeah. Yeah. We both took ABCS, so we know a little bit.
So if you can figure out, like, if either one of you wants, I'm using software engineering as a really easy example, right? Figure out some open source projects to go start contributing to. Find somebody who's got a startup that you can start contributing to with code, right? Because you'll learn like real world pragmatic stuff on the fly. And seriously, like if you've got if when you get out of high school, someone's already wanting to hire you for a software job, it completely changes the game with your parents.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Because they're going to be like, wait, what? You've got a job and you skipped the whole college thing. How'd you do that? Right.
Yeah.
And even before that, if you can say, hey, I'm working on this project with a startup, they'll cut you some slack, right?
Exactly.
Because you're really leaping ahead in the game, right? And it's super easy to do. You can do that with writing code. You can do that with marketing. You can do it with customer service. You can do it with writing content. I mean, you can't do it like in the medical field. I'm not recommending that anybody go and do surgery on anybody, but if you're doing any kind of internet business or anything around business marketing related to content, there's so many places you can start doing work now, even if you don't get paid, because the learning is so valuable.
Yeah, definitely.
Gary Vaynerchuk talks about this all the time, right? Learn this stuff as early as you possibly can, because the incremental value of it as you're moving ahead, and you starting earlier than anybody else is going to be gold.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I mean, I think even from a different angle, like even if you are concerned about college, this is super helpful, right? Because like, colleges are obviously going to love that you're like working with a startup, trying to go on a project. I think definitely.
Yeah. There's one of the software engineers that I know. He started playing with code in high school. In his freshman year of college, he was a computer science major. He started doing a mobile app as part of a project, and put it up in the app store for iOS, and it started making money.
Wow. Yeah.
And all of a sudden, he didn't need his college scholarship anymore, and so he paid back his scholarship, and then he started doing that app he built. Other people started asking him for help, and he dropped out of college beginning of his sophomore year, because he was in San Francisco working for a company, getting a full-on engineer salary,
without even a college degree. So like
no college degree at all. Right, exactly. Right. He leapfrogged the whole thing because he realized he didn't need 4 years to learn how to write good code.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
I just want to go back to what Sahil said about like the mentality in Los Gatos and Saratoga. Yeah. And I mean, I just want to ask, so do you know of any LG clubs that are discussing mental wellness right now? And if so, do you think that those clubs could work with Saratoga's clubs, and if that would be beneficial? I know of Cats to Cats, but do you know of any others?
Cats to Cats is the big one.
It's a big one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Definitely you want to talk with them.
Oh yeah, it's actually crazy. We have already talked to them, and they were actually giving us advice and stuff. They're great.
Yeah, I'm sure you know Nora Fayyad. Yeah, basically she introduced us to them.
Yeah. They're did you get their origin story?
Yeah, from what I understand, it was one person. I think it was Jason, right? Jason, the junior. I think it was a junior, basically. But he called up a couple of his friends, I think last July or something. He asked them if they wanted to start a club or something like that, and they just got like a bunch of members, and they just went from there. And I think they gained like a lot of traction really quickly. Yep. And now, they went from like 30 members to 18 members, and now they do a lot. It's
it's actually like pretty similar to me and Aditya's story. It's just except we had to go through all that legal process and stuff like that. So that kind of slowed us down.
A little bit of a path from us, but I mean, I think same concept, same timeline, but
The interesting thing that you might not have heard yet is that Jason started to begin with because he got at a real bad place around depression.
Oh, he did. That's why he started. Okay.
He was really struggling, and he part of what he realized was that he wasn't getting the kind of resources that he needed. This is before Hart got into the school. He needed a ton of help, and it wasn't readily available. And so he had the presence to say, wow, I need to build something because there's nothing here. I need to start doing something for the rest of the students, because I'm probably not the only one suffering.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's crazy. That's like very similar to our mentality.
I mean, maybe not like I don't think, at least for me or Sal, but like, I mean, we wanted to like, basically what I'm trying to say is we wanted to have like more resources available, but like, just for like parents and students, because like we thought that like that conversation wasn't happening.
So we knew that resources weren't really being available to these students who we knew that they were going through stuff, but they were just like not presented with any resources.
Right.
So like I think definitely, I mean, even with all this like, emphasis on mental health, especially in the Bay Area, we still find that like some people like aren't getting the help they need. And it's obviously like I think I would say this like it's definitely still a growing sector even with all the emphasis that's being put on mental health. But yeah, no, I think there's definitely still like a lot of like work that like that can be done, especially between like these two high schools.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And it's, going back to something earlier, I think a lot of it is um, people that are struggling and they only think about the symptom. They don't think about that they have depression or anxiety. And so a lot of the conversation needs to be about what are you struggling with, right? One of my son's friends, his parents won't let him out of the house because they're afraid he'll get COVID, even though they live up in the mountains and there's not another person within a quarter mile.
Wow. Okay.
But they're like, you're staying in the house, right? And he's,
Wow.
you know, that's not a good thing,
No,
right? Like,
that's not
let him
really.
get out of the house, get in the woods, he'll be fine, right? Um, Part of it is the kids don't know to advocate for themselves well enough either, right? If students don't know that they can push back against their parents and say, hey, mom, look, I'm safe outside, right? We've got a huge yard. There's nobody close. I can go run around the woods. I'll stay away from the neighbors. I won't get sick. Here's the data, right? Now you get to go outside.
Exactly. Yeah. You used to like know exactly how to like, advocate. I think, yeah, you think that like being mentally like mental wellness like tools are a big part of that, like advocating for yourself.
Yeah, it's the full stack of stuff that we're teaching, because you guys are still early in the program. So there's 40 modules and 50 plus skills that we're teaching in
40
the whole
modules?
part program. Yeah,
Wait, are we not going to get through all the modules in school? I know this is like, but a little bit unrelated, but
you're not going to get through all the modules this year. No, sorry.
oh, okay.
Yeah,
Oh wow.
yeah. When we designed this, we started laying it out, and we were like, well, originally we were trying to figure out how to cram it all into 1 year,
Hmm.
and we realized that that's just not practical, right? Based on how the schools are today. Um, so we were like, okay, great. We'll make it a multi-year program. So right now it's a 4-year program. So you guys are in the first 10 modules for the first year.
Hmm.
And again, it's all about you learning the skills and learning um, how to recycle the skills in other contexts, right? So the kid that can't advocate for themselves, that skill set is the same skill set that I used to present to executives to get them to give me funding for projects.
So yeah, those skills can be like, that's yeah, honestly, that's huge. Like those skills that we learn
Yeah,
like right now, even for like, talking to parents. Yeah, like
exactly.
you can
Yeah,
like go up, ask like executives like millions of dollars and stuff like that. That's definitely like huge.
yeah, yeah. It's it's like if you're working on cars, you're going to learn a bunch of skills, and all of a
Yeah.
sudden one day you're going to be like, oh, I can tile the bathroom.
Yeah. You don't have to like
Tiling
charge,
the bathroom is kind of like stuff I've done on the car, right?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about something a little bit different.
yeah.
So obviously, like social media and everything.
Mhm.
So how do you think that like, do you think that social media has like, exacerbated mental health issues, or do you think that like it simply brought attention to these issues? Because I think that you can make an argument on both sides that social media is like, it's a huge proponent of like making why kids are like, more mentally unwell. But you can also say that like it's just exposing stuff that already existed. I don't know. In your opinion.
Wait, also, as like another question to add to that, right?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like like a lot of these terms like depression, anxiety have just been thrown around without people knowing like what they actually mean. And I think that's only become possible because of social media. So, yeah. So, in addition to Aditya's question,
Yeah.
just wondering your thoughts on that.
Okay. So the to answer the first question, because really it's two
Yeah, it's two
questions that are
separate questions.
related, I
Yeah.
Yeah, two
suppose,
separate
right?
questions. You can answer
Okay.
one after the other.
So the first one, there's a few different parts to that, right? That people might not be connecting the dots on. Um, One of them is that social media is designed to be attractive to you by giving you little bits of dopamine, and it's hacking your brain, right? You get little bits of dopamine by being on social media, and dopamine's good for you, right? Dopamine's great.
Mhm.
And if it distracts you from doing things that are healthier for you, that's not so good, right? So it's real easy to get stuck going through your social media feed of whatever it is you happen to be wanting to look at, right? you're getting these little bits of dopamine every few seconds or every minute or whatever the time cycle happens to be with your scrolling speed.
Mm-hmm.
And you're forgetting that what you should be doing is going out for a walk.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. Like
Without your device. Right. So,
yeah.
there's that one angle of the distracting you from doing what's more important.
So do you think that social media is necessarily like a proponent for making mental health worse as much as it is a distraction from making mental health like it? Okay, so from what I'm getting, social media makes mental health worse by distracting people from developing skills that can make their mental health better.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And it's, it's, if you're talking about the most basic stuff for your brain chemistry, if you're, if I'm, I don't even know where my phone is right now. That's actually a really good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've momentarily lost my phone, but I'll find it, I'm sure. But if I'm sitting, and I'm just looking at my phone and I'm forgetting to go get exercise,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm forgetting to get sunshine, and I'm forgetting to put attention on my kids, right? If I do it for 5 minutes one day, it's not a big deal.
Yeah. Real
But it
quick.
builds up over time, right?
Yeah.
The next day it's 7 minutes, right? And then it's 10 minutes. And then it's 3 hours.
Yeah, I mean, I've done the same thing. Like, I can't lie. There's been times when like I was gonna go work out, I was gonna go for a walk, I'm like, no, I want to scroll TikTok instead.
On the one hand, it's the distraction factor, right?
Exactly, yeah, distraction.
And in a way, social media is like candy for your brain,
Mm-hmm.
right? You know that if you eat a ton of candy, sooner or later, it's going to cause health problems.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Nobody really doubts that. There's no question about that. It's the same thing with social media, right? A little bit of it, you're totally fine. If you want to keep up with what your friends and relatives are doing, and it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day, or I'm going to go on and look up for my project car, the club for that, and what are people doing over there, and what's the latest thing. Yeah. 10 minutes, I'm done. Okay, great. That's it. And I've got to be self-aware, right? Cycling back to where we start with is self-awareness, to go, oh wow, you know what? I've been on here for 20 minutes. That's enough, right?
Yeah. I think
it's like, holy cow, I just ate 3 candy bars.
Yeah, like you don't realize that you're stopping, or that you haven't stopped yet. Yeah. I think another thing though is that some people, like at least for me, sometimes I'll be like, oh, it's like, I've been doing this for like an hour. I've been, scrolling Instagram for an hour, but I just don't want to stop, like you recognize that it's not healthy, but like you don't really care. How do you think that people can like, deal with that? Because obviously that's, I don't know, maybe that's a discipline issue, but how do you think people deal with that?
So for me, social media is always second place to other stuff that I like to do. Right.
Okay.
So I grew up being really physical. And so I would rather do physical things than stare at a screen most of the time. Right. So, I can go for a bike ride. Right. And it doesn't really matter to me if it's midnight.
Oh, like, really?
Going for bike rides in the middle of the night is awesome. Oh my God. It is so much fun. There is nobody on the road.
That's true. You can just like bike in the middle of the night. No one cares.
Yeah. Don't go on the freeway, but pretty much every place else, it's awesome. And if I ride over there's a trail on the railroad tracks, every now and then I'll see a coyote or a deer on there. And I'm like, oh my God, wildlife. Awesome. Right. And you can ride all over the place. The Los Gatos Creek Trail is 10 miles one way, and there's nobody there. You just go hop on the trail and go ride. You can get in a 20-mile ride. If the gym's open, I'll go to the gym. Go up in the hills and go run around, whatever. There's lots of different things to do that to me are more exciting than just looking at social media. Having a startup, I would rather work on our content. What's the next module we're working on? Do I have something to edit? Oh, do I need to write a piece for the blog? Is there something I should write about that we should post on Medium? Something I want to email out to clients or parents or prospects or whatever.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I'm thinking of things that are productive, not just getting rid of my boredom.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, I think think we can all agree that social media has some positive effects, but we need to
Yeah, there's
be able
definitely
to we need to be able to control that so that
Right,
it doesn't become unhealthy.
this is definitely something a case of like too much of a good thing. So it's
right,
something
right.
we have to control.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
uh,
exactly.
yeah.
And just kind of leading off that, I'd say it's pretty safe to say that social media has exacerbated some mental health issues for a lot of people, even though it does have some positive effects. But would you say that these mental health issues have like always existed at a high level, but with social media in place, that it has just like shed light on these issues?
I think a lot of people who struggled before didn't have a place to talk about it before. For one, that was broad, right? You know, they could talk to somebody local, but with social media, everybody in the world knows about it now, right? So now you're aware of it. And the other part of it is that being the 20th person to say that you're struggling with depression or anxiety is a lot easier than being the first.
Exactly. Yeah.
When you're the 200,000th, it's even easier. And so
Yeah.
people in the past would have been quiet, right? Because they didn't want to be the one standout person going, oh my God, I'm struggling. Now they're like, oh, there's a bunch of people struggling.
Exactly. I think social media is probably like most powerful, like, difference was its ability to like bring people together and show them that they're not
Yeah,
alone.
yeah, yeah. And so it democratized that problem space,
Exactly. Yeah.
right? If I go and post that I'm struggling and, I'm really depressed, I'm really anxious, there's a ton of other people that are in that same boat, right? And so, yeah, it makes it much easier.
Yeah.
Down to 6 minutes and 45 seconds again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we're just gonna ask one more question.
Sure.
Maybe take
Yeah,
like 5 minutes to respond to it. But yeah, let's see if we can squeeze in one more question.
Yeah.
yeah. So this last question is just kind of it's like more it's a more of a personal question. It's just like being that you have been in the education and tech industry, like, and you've like kind of switched over. Would you say that would you say that there were like any similarities with regards to mental health?
It's everywhere. Yeah. I think it's, I'm sure, well, so I've talked to folks in the education space who they talk about their struggles with imposter syndrome. I've talked to folks who, they talk about problems with anxiety about their job, about their students, about their administration. Um, the difference is just the context. Um, you know, over here, it's somebody in the tech world that's worried about products not going to get launched in time. Over here, it's education problems, student, administrators or teachers worried about what about our students? How are we going to take care of them well enough?
Mhm.
I would say that it almost doesn't matter where you're looking.
Mhm.
Like everywhere you look, these kinds of problems come up because nobody's teaching the skills to have those problems not be a problem anymore.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. So it doesn't really matter like what industry you're in. There's always mental health problems
Yeah.
like across the board.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I think that's really important to like realize that it's not like, it's not a generational thing. It's not a geographical thing. It exists everywhere, basically.
Yeah.
And it's been existing. I think there's like a common misconception of like, oh, with the Generation Z, they're always struggling with mental health problems.
Yeah,
But
maybe like there were different, maybe there's like different circumstances. Like obviously your generation grew up like, without as much technology and all that. It's just more visible for us.
exactly. And I think that was possible by social media.
Yeah.
That was kind of what I was getting at
Yeah.
before,
Yeah.
but yeah.
No, I would, I know that, when I was in high school, there were folks that were struggling, right? And nobody talked about it. Part of to your point, social media's benefit has been people are talking about it now, and it's out there. And even having said that, we still hear from parents, oh, I don't want any conversation about mental health regarding my kid because it'll impact his ability to have a career in the future,
Mhm.
right? And those are parents that they're doing the best they can with what they have available, but they're really scared for their kids' future because they aren't comfortable talking about mental health themselves.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's sort of a gray area though, like where people kind of like social media has brought attention to these different issues, and it's definitely a good thing, but there's also like people could just be using these terms for like attention and stuff. We've seen that with celebrities, but
Yeah.
there's
Unfortunately, we don't have
a
like,
kind of a gray area there, but
yeah.
yeah.
Unfortunately, we don't have quite enough time to like get into like all that.
Yeah,
But
all of that, but I think Bill, we just want to thank you for
Oh, thank
coming
you.
here and giving us your time. You've been a great
yeah,
guest.
this was
So,
really
Thank you very much.
yeah.
This has been
All
awesome.
right.
We'll see you guys later.